Welcome back. We're so close. We're going to talk about data management now and what we can do to improve security when it comes to data management. Data management encompasses many ideas, but there's a few topics. For example, you want to make sure you always have backups. Some people like backing up their website, data, static files, somewhere safe. Never have one point of failure. That is one place that is weak, and if that gets down, then you have no place else to recover from. You want to make sure that you limit sensitive data exposure. That is, you want to encrypt data at rest, so that is jumbling it up so bad people can't see it, and in transition. Now, here's the thing. What I just said, encrypting data at rest and in transition, most of the time is not feasible because encrypting data at rest means when data is just sitting there, pretty much, let's say in a database. Encrypting all that data costs a lot of money, requires a lot of effort, and is just not feasible. And it doesn't completely cover your bases. In transition means when you're sending data. So when you're sending data from the database to the server, when you're sending data from the server to the client. We know that HTTPS is used in that case. Now, you want to be selective of what data you encrypt and what you don't based on your resources at hand. You might want to encrypt sensitive information like phone numbers, email addresses of your users, but perhaps not necessarily worry about pen names of the users. That pen names column on a database, maybe you don't need to encrypt. So what can we do with data management? Well, I'm going to show you a quick example of some of the things you can do. But the main idea is you want to use encryption for any data identifying users and sensitive data like access tokens, emails, and billing, like I said. And finally, as we mentioned, with backups, you want those backups to be stored, to be ideally encrypted as well. Again, that may not always be feasible, but you want to focus on the sensitive data first, and anything else that you can encrypt, you should do so. Now, I want to talk about two main topics. One is hashing passwords and how to store them. And the second is how to encrypt your database that has sensitive data. The second part over here is really dependent on your database. So I'm not going to go over it because it's too specific. But tools like PG Crypto allow you to encrypt a few columns on a Postgres database, one of my favorite databases. And they have great documentation, so that's something you can do. But if I was using PG Crypto, I'll probably encrypt the billing address or email column of the users or anything sensitive for a user column. That is just good practice. But one of the topics that really fascinates me and I actually love is password storage. And I know that's a geeky thing to say, but it is really, really exciting. I actually wrote a company blog in my past life on this topic, so I'm going to leave that for you at the end of this course. And it's also something that we've already covered in my previous course. But I'm going to do a quick rundown of what you should do with passwords. Any website that has username and password and sign-in needs to have good data management, especially when it comes to passwords. So what can we do? Well, there's 3 libraries that are really, really good. And these 3 libraries are really good because they're tried and tested. When it comes to security, you want to choose packages that have been around for a long time because security experts, hackers, black hat and white hat hackers all have tested it and have stood the test of time. And these 3 have really stood the test of time. Aragon 2 is fairly new, but it's been doing really, really well. I personally like bcrypto, so let me show you a quick demonstration. I have over here a file. Let me make this a little bit bigger. That I downloaded the bcrypt Node.js package just to have it working with Node.js very easily. And that's pretty much it. And if I go to their packages over here, we see that they have a synchronous option and an asynchronous option. So let's just copy the first part. And I'm going to explain what it does. And I don't like bacon. I'm going to go with soup here. So when your website has a username and password, what should we do? Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to let the user type in their username and password, and then they're going to click submit. When they click submit, you're going to make sure that it's HTTPS so that the password and the username, you put it in the HTTPS request in the body of the request. You send it over to the backend, and then it arrives. Let's say that this is your backend. Once it arrives, you grab that password, and we'll say that your password that you just typed is soup. Very weak password, I know, but we'll just use it for demonstration purposes. Now, what we do is we never store passwords like this in our database, because if our database gets compromised or somebody enters it, they have all the passwords of everybody. Never ever do that. Instead, we use bcrypt, which allows us to hash. And if you remember hashing from our SSH section, it's a one-way function that will take the soup string and turn it into a jumbled up string that, well, we're never going to know that came from soup. So let me show you. I'm going to say console.log the hash. Let's save, run node script, and look at that. We got the hash. This, whoa, did not want to copy that. This really jumbled up string that represents soup. Even if a bad actor gets into our database and sees, oh yeah, Andre's password is this, they're not going to be able to do anything with it because they don't know. They can't go to the website and type in this because, well, that won't work. My password is soup. So how does that work? We store this in the database for the user, let's say Andre. And when Andre comes back, I don't like using my own name. Let's use Tim as an example. When Tim comes back, how can we check that when Tim types soup again, that is the same as this hash that we have in the database? Well, if we go back to bcrypt, they have another method called compare. And this compare is going to compare the string that Tim puts in when he comes back to the website again to sign in, and the hash that we have stored in the database. In my case, let's say I have this stored in the database. And again, if you're not too familiar with databases, I do recommend you check out my previous course. And there's our string. Let's actually make it into a string. So that's our hash that we just grabbed from the database. All right, now here we get a response. So let's see what the response is going to be. I'm going to say console.log response. I'm going to save, run this. Did you see that? I got true. So now I know that, yep, that's Tim's password. He can sign in. But if Tim misspells something, let's say I do capital S and an exclamation mark, I save and run this. Nope, that's not your password. Try again. And it's good enough that even a capital, it'll detect. There you go. Because a hash, any small change in the password is going to spit out a completely different hash. Now, in case you're wondering what null here is, well, in my article that I wrote, I talk about salt rounds and how it adds extra layers of security. It's a complex topic and beyond the scope of this course, but do read it if you're interested in it. It's just an extra security measure. But what it does is, if you notice how slow we get the hash, and then it takes a bit of time to get the true or false. Let me show you. If I save this and run this again, you see that pause where the hash was hashed really fast, but this took a bit of time. Let's see again. So what happens there is it's extra protection by bcrypt. It's saying, all right, if there was a bad person, I can just keep trying passwords until I get a match. So bcrypt, using something called salt rounds, makes these brute force attacks where the bad person just keeps trying passwords really hard because it takes a bit of time to actually check. So if I was a bad attacker, I would keep trying these, but because Bcrypt is slow, it would take a really, really long time for me to guess a password. And it's another layer of protection that comes with Bcrypt and most good hashing libraries. Again, data management is really, really important. And this goes back to environment variables as well. Any secrets, even including your SSH key, you want to manage it properly. Never reveal your secrets. Always make it as hard as possible for bad actors to access sensitive information. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.